The void teaches no mercy. They gathered early because the room changed how you breathed. The amphitheater fell in a steady bowl toward the dais, and the walls were paneled with composite that drank sound and left it clean. The hollow panels slept like dark water. Outside the armored windows, the curve of Earth showed a thin rim of weather pulled tight around the planet's shoulder. The Academy sat on ground that old maps called Germany, but the world was past maps. The United Humanity League had carved new borders in the air and the sea and the vacuum beyond. Still, the stones under the floor were older than any of them, and the recruits walked softer when their boots struck them. They spoke in a murmur you could carry with 2 fingers. "Thorne," one said, as if the name itself might echo. "Lieutenant Aric Thorne." Another replied that he had flown Proxima, which meant nothing and everything depending on how many funerals you had stood through. There were numbers attached to the name, always numbers. 42 confirmed in theater, someone said. More, said another, because records were for the living and the void didn't file reports. A third recruit touched his own cheekbone, tracing a phantom line from eye to jaw. "That scar," he said, "the stills show it colder than the hull. The story was a rail fragment or a canopy shard or the edge of a wrench in a decompression emergency. They all preferred the version where the void had to mark him to let him go." Under the Academy crest, the room held the quiet of machines at idle. The air smelled faintly of ozone from last week's maintenance, and the floor had a thin polish that reflected the seat legs, like drawn lines. The recruits were not children. They wore the UHLN wing with the modesty of people who understood it could disappear in a flash. They had flown escort between rock towns and supply barges. They had bounced off dust and the glare of small suns. None of that was Proxima, and the rumor attached to Thorne was not that he was the best, but that he had not died when the numbers said he should. Someone said he doesn't talk. Someone else said he talks only to say you are wrong. There was a laugh, the way one laughs before a medical patch goes on. A cadet near the aisle tapped the seat back in front of him to settle the energy in his hands. The lights dimmed 1 degree, and the Academy crest lifted itself from the wall in blue fire. The side door sighed. He stepped in. He looked like the age his record said, mid-20s, winged bar at the throat, regulation cut, the uniform sitting on him with the honesty of repeated wear. If he had been taller or broader, he would have been easier to mythologize. The scar on the right cheek did that work instead. It was a sober line, not a flourish. He walked the front edge of the dais, paused, and let the room weigh him. The noise fell away without anyone ordering it. The hollow panels woke at a gesture, and geometry came alive over his shoulder. "You're here," he said, and the voice was not loud, but it found the back row without effort. "Good, let's get to work." He did not give them biography. The first projection was a pair of interceptors drawn in clean wire, arrowheads nested inside cones of thrust, blue threads of vector bleeding from their tails. "Out there," he said, "is motion without mercy. You do not fly, you translate. You pivot around a center that is inside your reactor and also 10 kilometers ahead of your nose. If you reach for atmosphere, for drag or lift, you are reaching for a ghost, and the ghost does not catch you." He let the interceptors drift across the air. The simulation widened until the walls disappeared. Stars burned cold and steady in every direction. The recruits were inside the projection now, their reflections mixed with constellations. Thorne moved among them, hands behind his back, voice the same controlled rhythm that filled flight logs. "Every thrust you burn," he said, "is a signature. The universe remembers. Momentum is a promise you make to physics, and it will collect on the debt no matter how far you drift. You will try to chase an enemy as you did in atmosphere. You will die doing it. The void does not forgive pursuit." He touched the console. The two interceptors moved. One overcorrected, exhaust flaring too long. It spun into a slow tumble, and the second ship cut across its wake and vanished in a white burst. The image froze with the debris still blooming. "That's the first rule," Thorne said. "Don't chase, intercept." A cadet in the back row, voice young but steady, asked if that was how he had done it at Proxima. Thorne's eyes turned toward the sound. For a moment his expression didn't move. Then he said, "Proxima was a lot of things. Geometry was one of them." He keyed the display again. The stars changed. Now they were thick with debris and faint halos of light where reactors had burst and cooled. The recruits recognized it from the history feeds. The Centauri Belt, Orbital Plane 6. Ships hung like ghosts, their names long burned away. Thorne watched the projection as if it were a map only he could still read. At the end of the second day, he said, "This is what the field looked like. 17 vessels gone. One of them was my wing." He stopped. No one dared speak. The only sound was the hum of the emitter grid. "You can teach a pilot to die," he said. "You can't teach him to listen to silence. You hear it once, you carry it home, and you never stop hearing it." For a second, the room felt colder. The reflection of the stars cut along the scar on his cheek. Then he took a slow breath and straightened again. Now, missile combat. He brought up a new schematic, a sleek cylinder rotating in stasis, fins unfolding like petals. "The Kessler V-Type 7, he said. "Smart ordnance, adaptive. It listens better than you do. It learns your heat, your signature drift, your hesitation. Once it knows you, it will follow you until it runs out of universe." A few recruits shifted uneasily. "You can't outrun it. You confuse it. You lie to it. You feed it a trajectory that shouldn't exist." He showed them. The interceptor cut power, flipped end over end, fired a single pulse against its own exhaust wash. The missile bent toward the phantom heat trail and detonated in emptiness. "That maneuver saved me twice," Thorne said. "The third time there was nothing left to save." The projection dissolved. The light in the room returned, too bright after the dark. "You will practice these patterns until they are reflex," he said. "But remember, reflex will fail you. Only discipline survives." He moved to the console again, setting a new sequence. The air thickened with the hum of power as the Academy simulation grid came online. A red light blinked overhead. "Drill Delta. Neural sync active." "Enter the pods," Thorne said. 10 of you to a team. You will fight for orbital position Theta. There are no winners. There are only survivors." The recruits filed into the neural shells that lined the wall. The lids sealed with a hiss, and the hum rose into a deep vibration that filled the bones. Inside the vises, the black opened like a wound. Stars appeared, precise and distant. Thrusters flared. The exercise began. Thorne's voice came through the comnet, steady, exact. "Maintain delta formation, minimal burn. You are not birds. You are math." Icons of the two teams spread across the grid. At first, the motion was graceful, each vector a stroke of light. Then one cadet broke formation, chasing a false target. Another panicked, firing too long. The pattern collapsed into chaos. Thorne's tone hardened. You are bleeding momentum. Regain cohesion. Now. They obeyed, pulling back together, but the enemy corvette that the system controlled had already swung broadside. Missile locks flashed across the board. Deploy ECM on my mark, Thorne said. 3, 2, 1, mark. Flares bloomed, dazzling bursts that painted the black in false day. Most of the incoming fire curved away. One didn't. It struck the rearmost fighter and tore it apart in a silent flash. The pilot's vitals flat-lined on Thorne's display. The pods simulated everything but death, and still the room shook as if the void had reached through the walls. Maintain focus, Thorne said. You do not mourn inside the envelope. You finish the fight. He dove beneath the corvette's arc, twin cadets on his wing. Fire, he ordered. Their torpedoes streaked upward and the enemy's shields flared, fractured, died. The ship came apart in slow pieces, drifting outward like ash. The simulation froze. The pods opened one by one. The cadets sat upright, breathing hard, sweat cutting tracks through the luminescent dust on their faces. That, Thorne said, is the difference between order and entropy. Control is an illusion, but it's the only one that keeps you alive. Dismissed for 10 minutes. They left quietly. Only one stayed. Sir, the tall woman said, why keep flying after Proxima? Why not teach from a desk? Thorne studied her for a moment. Because someone has to show you how not to die, he said. It's not philosophy, it's arithmetic. He looked past her, eyes unfocused. When I was your age, I believed in victory. Then I learned the void doesn't recognize winners, only witnesses. The hardest part is the flight home. You start counting who's missing, and the silence fills the cockpit until you can't tell if it's outside or inside you. He stopped, smoothing the front of his uniform. The void remembers, he said. So should we. She saluted. He nodded her away. When the hall was empty, he powered down the console. The light faded to a dull blue. For a long time he stood there, hands at his sides, seeing not the room but the reflection of a canopy breaking apart, the shape of a man turning slowly in a spiral he could never correct. There had been no explosion, just the glint of light on glass, and a mouth open in a scream that never reached the radio. He closed his eyes. The hum of the equipment sounded like a reactor winding down. Let them learn faster, he whispered. Let the silence take fewer. Then he turned off the lights. The stars on the walls dimmed and died, leaving only the faint echo of engines and breath.